of the big benefits. One of the other benefits is next day funding. So as long as you're processing through our platform, you will have your funds the next day. Our cutoff time for next day funding is 9:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So as long as you're batched out by then, you will have your accounts the next day, or your funds the next day. Payment security, which is a big one, obviously the topic of today's conversation. We'll get into exactly what that means and how it's all integrated within our platform. And then real-time reporting and simple reconciliation. These two kind of run hand in hand, but these are honestly the biggest benefits of any type of integration. If you think about it, some of you might be running, I don't know how many transactions a day. What if you're running 1,000 transactions a day? If you don't have an integrated solution, you're having to go from your card processor's portal and then enter those transactions into your software. And we're eliminating that step completely by just doing all that in the background for you. So I'd say that's probably the biggest benefit of integrated payments. So diving into PCI compliance, and I just want to be extremely honest here, PCI compliance is pretty confusing. I was putting this together, and even I've been doing this for 3 years, and I still don't have my head fully wrapped around it because it's just kind of confusing. So I just want to kind of put that out there. There's a lot of terms in here, but I'm going to try and make it as simple as I possibly can for you guys. So basically, what is PCI compliance? When you boil it all down, it's really about doing what is right for your customers and maintaining their trust. Any good business wants to keep its systems secure and safeguard customers' payment information. So basically, any company like yourselves that processes, stores, or transmits payment card holder data must adhere to a set of standards known as PCI DSS, which is the Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. That's a mouthful. Basically, the overview is cardholder data that refers to the personally identifiable information, which is PII, is associated with the owner of a debit or credit card. And PCI SAQ ensures that the merchants handle cardholder data in a secure environment. I think that's a lot of information. And I think just to put it simply is accepting cardholder data that's sensitive information. And we just need to make sure that overall you're accepting it in a secure environment and that you're using a platform that takes you out of PCI scope and that you just know why it's important to be PCI compliant and take that secured information in a compliant way. So why does it matter? These are just a few reasons why PCI compliance matters. It's a set of standards, not laws, but almost every single state has enacted legislation requiring merchants to notify their customers of security breaches. Current state and federal privacy regulations forbid merchants from storing unencrypted cardholder data. And we'll get into that in a couple of slides, what it means to store encrypted data, which is what our platform does for you, and storing unencrypted data. So some of the not benefits, but some of the bad things that can happen if you're not PCI compliant or accepting it in a PCI compliant environment is fines and legal fees. I think that's probably the number one thing that if anybody on this call is familiar with PCI compliance, that's one of the number one things that they could probably know already. It's pretty industry standard for a credit card processor to charge like a monthly or quarterly fee to the merchant if they haven't become PCI compliant. Basically what that means and why we do that, it's like a pesky reminder to say, hey, you're still not PCI compliant, so we're going to charge you a certain amount per month until you become PCI compliant, because we can't necessarily make you become PCI compliant. A couple others are forensic audits. If your business gets audited and you're not PCI compliant, that could mean bad things to you as a business owner with that liability. loss of business, reputation damage, decrease in stock equity. I think really just these kind of run hand in hand with like either a breach, or if a customer knows you're not accepting their own card data in a secure environment, why would they, they'd probably be less inclined to, hand over their card to you to make that payment. So the PCI SAQ, this kind of runs hand in hand with the whole thing of how do I become compliant? What does it mean? Anybody on this call that has had experience with this probably is familiar with the SAQ, and probably has had a little bit of frustrations with it, because I know, in my time doing this, that's been like one of the number one things is like, hey, I don't understand PCI compliance. Why do I have to take this SAQ? I don't understand how to answer the questions. So this, I hope, helps determine which SAQ you should be taking, because it does matter. There are different levels per merchant of which SAQ you should be taking. So basically, regardless of the size or number of card transactions, you are required, just if you are accepting merchants' cards. So the transaction volume does impact which level of compliance each merchant is subject to. So there's level 1 through 4. Level 1 is any merchant processing more than 6 million card transactions annually. Level 2 is any merchant processing 1 to 6 million card transactions annually. Level 3 is processing 20,000 to 1 million transactions annually. And level 4 is any merchant processing less than 20,000 transactions annually. So I think, you can kind of decipher which SAQ you should be taking depending on the level of merchant that you are, based off of those, limitations there. So like I said, varies per merchant level. It's the larger the business you are, the higher validation and the more stringent level of compliance is going to be required. Merchants who have suffered a breach that compromised cardholder data, they may be bumped up to a higher validation level. So for example, if you're a level 2 merchant that experiences a breach, you may be moved to level 1, which would then in turn introduce a more stringent level of compliance. So what's at stake? Obviously quite a lot. I think putting that number on it, $3.86 million, that's a very large number. It kind of puts everything into perspective for you. There's a lot that's at stake if you get breached. Customer trust is a big one. Investor evaluations, E-level positions, and brand value. I think one of my favorite examples to use in this case is, especially for brand value, is Marriott. And I knew it firsthand because I honestly stay at Marriott all the time for my business travel. Marriott went through a huge breach and they had to rebrand their entire company to Bonvoy. Some of the other large breaches that have happened are like Home Depot, Sears, Capital One, Heartland Systems, which is another payment provider. Some of these had up to like 160 million cards that were compromised. Think about what that does to a company of that size. And if you think about what it does to a company of a size like Marriott or Heartland or something like that, and if they undergo a breach, it's just as easy, for a hacker to breach a small to medium-sized business. So it just kind of puts it into perspective for you. So our solution, so how does CardConnect help you as the merchant, stay out of PCI scope and stay secure? So Bolt is our point-to-point encrypted platform. This is what Vetter is integrated into. So this is how we provide you with a secure platform. So basically what that means is PCI validated point-to-point encrypted devices into any software environment. Basically what that means is if you're using one of our Bolt devices, it is fully point-to-point encrypted. And what that means is like P2PE solution is a combination of secure devices, applications, and processes that encrypt data from the point of interaction, so the point of when you swipe the card, until the data reaches the solution's provider's secure decryption environment, which is kind of confusing, but it just means that we're securing that data from the point of swiping the card to the very end point. And we also are securing the information through our PCI validated. So say you're taking payments online, it's still secured that way because we're encrypting that data as well through tokenization, which we'll talk about a little bit in a couple slides. So what is Bolt? Bolt, like I said, it's our integrated platform that Better is integrated into for our card present solution, which majority of people, if you are using our integration, you probably have one of these 4 terminals. These are the 4 terminals that we currently offer through our integration with Better. I think it's a really big benefit. I've seen what other processors do, and I know that sometimes you only have maybe 1 terminal to choose from. So I think this is beneficial too, that we can provide 4 different terminals depending on your type of business to choose from. So all of these are different. They're all at different price points. They all pretty much have the same functionality, just some have a few different features. So the ISMP4 on the left, that is our first ever wireless device, which actually has been very commonly used from Better merchants recently. That is our most recent terminal that came out. And then we have the ISE Touch 250. It is, the only difference in that is it's a signature capture, so it's a touch screen, so you can accept the signature capture. And then the IPP 320 and 350 down the bottom terminal, it's got all your same functionality, just none of the, not wireless, and it doesn't have touch screen. So all of these accept swipe, dip, which is non-contactless payments, and tap, which is your EMV chip. They secure every transaction with the P2PE technology, and like I said, there's purchase and rental options for each of these devices, and they're all at different price points. So you can kind of have the choice of what makes most sense for your business. So PCI certified P2PE, some of the benefits through CardConnect, like I said earlier, whether you're processing in a card present or a card not present environment, we're still protecting that cardholder data. So whether it's swiped, dipped, or keyed, just depending on how you're processing those transactions, we're still encrypting that data. Another big one is the PCI scope reduction. So since we're taking these protocols through our P2PE devices and through tokenization, we're actually reducing your scope as the merchant, and we're reducing your SAQ to 26 questions, around there. I don't want to say it's going to be exactly 26 questions. It really depends on the merchant, but it's going to be around 26 questions. And we will get into that on the last slide of kind of where you would fall. But that's another thing that I've heard of, feedback from merchants are saying, like, I don't know how to answer this. I need my IT guy to come in and it takes 3 hours and I still can't answer it. It's just really complex. And maybe you're taking the wrong SAQ. I think it really just depends on the type of business you are, how much volume you're doing. But yeah, that's one of the benefits here is reducing your SAQ, but it also, some people might be disagreeing with maybe because they've tried it and it's been 300 questions, and that's because these SAQs really, it depends on what you answer. So say you answer one question yes, it's going to take you to a different type of question than the person who answered no. So it's kind of reactive depending on how you answer the questions as well. But we'll get into which one would be the best fit for you. So I know we did a dive into point-to-point encryption, P2PE, but this is tokenization. So this is really for also for card not present transactions. So this is already built into our technology. Tokenization basically means anytime you swipe or enter a card through our gateway, we basically take that card number and we jumble it up into a token. It's just a jumbled up number that only our system understands. So if you think about when people breach, it's basically impossible to breach a token because it's not a full card number. The only thing you can recognize it by is the last 4 of the card number. Instead, it sits there as a token. It can be used for reoccurring payments. I know some people who have had some reservations about even doing like card on file because they're worried that, you know, it's not secure, you know, keeping people's keeping people's card information on file like that, but really it is if they're tokenized. So that's one of the other main ways that we take you out of PCI scope and keep you in compliance along with point-to-point encryption. Like I said, they're impossible to decrypt. You can recognize it with the last 4 of the card number, and they are unique to your business. So this slide can be a little bit confusing, but basically what I just want you to focus on are the last 2 there, where it says SAQ HW 33 questions or SAQ A 22 questions, because Vetter is integrated into our Bolt technology, which pretty much makes everybody fall into that PCI P2PE 33 question questionnaire. That's really what needs to be focused on here. So I want to, like, if anybody has had issues going through PCI compliance or anything like that, I want to be sure we're getting you to the correct SAQ, because I don't want you to land up, you know, in SAQ C or D when that's not the type of business you are, and that's not what integration that Vetter is using. Really, we just would want to be doing that 33 question one. The 22 question one is if you are accepting payments without a Bolt terminal, but just through you know, online or e-commerce, that would pertain to you. So that went pretty quick, but if you guys have any questions, I am happy to answer them now.
There's also a chat window too, if you need to use that if you don't have speaker on your computer.
Let me see if I can. Oh, got it.